Hi, I'm Paul Tan and we are here in sunny Putrajaya to have a look at the new BMW 740Le xDrive plug-in hybrid. Now we've got the 740Li and now we've got the 740Le. So visually, how is it different? So compared to the Li, externally there's not much difference. It even has the same alloy wheel design, but you do get this little I badge here, an eDrive badge on the rear C-pillar. Of course, there's an E instead of I on the back. But most importantly, on the opposite side of the fuel flap, you have another flap here that has the charging port. Now this charges the car's electric battery. Now why does this car have a battery? Does it mean it's an electric car that you need to charge it every day? If not, you'll just be stranded on the highway? No. This is a plug-in hybrid. So this car still has its normal 2-liter turbo engine from the 730Li, but it's called a 740 here because it has an extra electric motor to help it give a bit more power, as well as travel with the engine off under certain conditions. What BMW has done is, you know the engine? This is the engine, this is the gearbox, right in the middle where the torque converter is. They've taken that out and they've put an electric motor in between that. So you have an engine that makes 258 horsepower and 400 Newton meters of torque, and that little electric motor that gives you another about 113 horsepower and 250 Newton meters of torque. So if the engine and the motor combine, you get a total system output of 326 horsepower and 500 Newton meters of torque. BMW says this is the equivalent of what a 740 would make. That's why this car is called a 740Le. This little charge port here would probably raise a lot of questions. A lot of people will be worried. So how do I need to charge this car every day or what? No. Using this is optional. The car will actually charge the battery as you drive along. But the issue with that is you're not using the full potential of the car. You see, charging the battery while you drive is going to use fuel to power a generator to charge the battery. So what this port is for you to charge the car at charging stations. So how do you charge the car? And how long does it take? So this is a normal, as you can see here, this is a normal 3-pin UK standard plug, the kind that we use here in Malaysia. What you do is you just plug this in your home, and on this side, you plug it into the car. Now charging this way will probably take about 5 to 8 hours. Now why such a big range? BMW actually lets you configure the car how fast you want it to be charged. This is in case if you set it to the fastest charging speed and your house has issues because it pulls too much power, or maybe you are in a public area where the ampere of the socket is at a lower rating. You can set it to charge slower, it'll take 8 hours. Or you can set it to charge at the fastest speed, it'll take about 5 hours. Now a full charge would probably cost you about, we did a bit of calculations, the battery on this car is about 9 kilowatt hours, and Tenaga Nasional charges 58 cents per kilowatt hour at the highest tier. So I think per charge for this car it will probably cost you about 5 ringgit. Something around there. And what that 5 ringgit can do is take you about between 30 to 35 kilometers of driving on a normal driving behavior. And now we come to this other charging cable here. This is for you to use it with public charging stations like Charge EV in Malaysia. Or BMW has access to the Charge EV network as well. They call it the Charge Now network. What you do is just plug it into the car, and on the other end you plug it into the socket on the public charger. Using this method will charge the car fully in about just 2 hours. And the most interesting thing is the charging stations in Malaysia are currently free. So you could charge, you could get about that 2 hours of charge for full battery and travel absolutely free for about 30 to 35 kilometers. Of course, if that quicker 2-hour charge time is something that's appealing to you, you can also install what's called a BMW i wall box at home. That's like the public, your own very own public charging station at home, which of course now would be a private charging station. That costs about 6,000 ringgit before installation, and with that you can just use this cable, plug it into the car, plug it into the wall box, and you'll be ready to go with full charge in about 2 hours as well. When it comes to boot space, a car like this will generally have less boot space than its smaller siblings. In this case, the 7 Series has a smaller boot than the 5 Series because the engineers chose to give more emphasis to interior room rather than boot space. This is not something that's just a BMW thing, it's the same with Mercedes-Benz. The E-Class has a bigger boot than the S-Class. Now, developing a plug-in hybrid, a PHEV, is actually not as straightforward a thing as you all would assume. Because on one hand you've got the engine, and on one hand you've got the electric motor. Both are supposed to power the wheels, and so managing the transition between the engine and the electric motor can be a very tricky thing. If they're not perfectly in sync, you'll get this really rubbish, jerky kind of thing which you would never put a BMW badge on. But I'm happy to say that BMW has got this thing down perfectly. The transitions between the electric motor and the engine is so smooth that you won't notice them at all. Since this car offers electric driving modes, it's natural that people would compare them to the king of electric cars, the Tesla Model S. I can say that this car can provide 90% of the Tesla driving experience if you charge the battery full before you leave your home. It's the same seamless, quiet, zero emissions drive. As long as you drive within the confines of the eDrive mode, absolutely lovely. And the eDrive system isn't really that constraining either. You're not forced to drive extra slow or be that really irritating guy who drives like 80 kilometers per hour on the right lane. No, you can just drive normally, you can keep it in electric mode the whole journey. When you really gun the throttle, this car is supposed to take you to 100 kilometers per hour in 5.5 seconds. But to be honest, it doesn't really feel that fast in this car, probably because it's so well insulated, so you don't really hear much. But I find that there's no issues overtaking or doing any kind of highway maneuver that you need to do. But to be honest, I didn't really feel any problem in the 730Li either. So this one has an extra electric motor to help with things. But of course, this being a 4-cylinder engine, the sound of the engine note isn't really quite as nice as a 740Li. So yeah, if you are absolutely particular about having that 6-cylinder sound, this won't satisfy you in that way lah. We've been keeping track of our fuel consumption figures, and it's quite interesting. We can get about 6 liters per 100 km on this car. Of course, this is assuming that you charge the battery enough so that the car can travel in EV mode most of the time. But 6 liters is really amazing for a car of this size. In terms of handling, this is of course a BMW, so naturally it will drive better than the S-Class. But I do notice that at low speeds, the 7 Series tends to feel larger than the S-Class. The S-Class somehow seems to have a better turning circle than the 7 Series, but out on the open road, 7 Series is the better driver's car. So the thing is about being a driver's car and all, this is of course a very big limo, and driving fun is not really that big a factor when it comes to making a purchase in this segment, you see. And the new S-Class is already a big improvement over the old one. The old one was absolutely rubbish at any kind of spirited driving. The new one, a big improvement. So the gap between the S-Class and the 7 Series has kind of gotten smaller. In the previous generations, the 7 Series would just blow the S-Class to smithereens. But with this generation, the gap, I feel like the gap has gotten a bit closer. So, is it as comfortable as an S-Class? Well, for the first time on the 7 Series, you get air suspension on both the front and rear axles. So the end result is a very lovely, wafty kind of feel when you drive, you know, like you're wafting along on a nice, comfortable cloud. It's very, very nice. That's in the comfort mode. If you switch to the sport mode, the whole characteristic of the car simply transforms and it feels like you're driving a 5 Series. So there's a very interesting, very wide range of behavior that this car can adapt to, which is very good. So the interior, is it as wow as the one in the S-Class? Maybe not. The general layout of things is very similar to the F33 series, while the design is not as impressive as the one that you see in the S-Class, but in general the material feel is very good. It's on par with the S-Class, and in fact in many areas the 7 Series does even better. For example, this Napa leather trim on the dashboard, this very nice smooth leather, this is one level up from whatever you'll find in the S-Class. So it really helps bring up the ambience of the car. Even the material of the seat leather is one up of the one on the S-Class. Now the S-Class did offer this more premium type of leather in the CBU models for an extra premium, but in the CKD they stopped offering that. So in the 740LE you do get this nice premium Napa smooth leather. Now both the S-Class and the 7 Series tries to play with ambient lighting in the interior to make for a more visually interesting look at night. The one in the 7 Series, while it still looks good, but compared to the one in the S-Class, I still think the S-Class one looks better because the glows kind of stretch out further across a wider surface. Whereas in the 7 Series, because of the design itself, they have to make the glow lines a bit more focused because there's not much space for the light to cast. But that said, BMW also added a lot of interesting features when it comes to light play. For example, the room lights. You can see that they have this interesting bar-like design. And of course, at night, when you open the panoramic sunroof, you can see that they've embedded little light dots in them to represent a starry sky kind of look. And something you won't find in the S-Class is this light on the B pillar, which is not very bright. It's like just has a soft glow to it, and it is inspired from the lighting that you'll find in the business class cabin on an aircraft. And the light show begins even before you get into the car. Instead of normal puddle lamps, when you approach the car at night, you'll see this very nice BMW welcome carpet, which projects a very interesting pattern of light onto the floor. In terms of active safety features, this BMW is equipped with the Driving Assistant Plus package, which makes it level with the features offered on the S-Class. It's got the adaptive cruise control, it's got steering assist when you're on cruise control. The cruise control works even in heavy traffic, so it will help keep distance to the car in front so you don't have to keep accelerating and braking on your own. It's got lane change assist, lane departure warning. But I do have something to say about the adaptive cruise control with the steering assist feature on this car. Personally, I feel that BMW could do a bit better with the programming of how the cruise control system accelerates and brakes. It feels a little abrupt and jerky in this car, kind of like if this was an actual driver, he would be like a newbie driver who isn't used to driving smoothly yet. Whereas the cruise control system on the S400 feels more like it's a seasoned, like 40, 50-year-old driver. He's been driving for 20 years. He knows how to keep the car in control so that the boss at the back doesn't get a headache from sudden acceleration and jerks. You know, you don't get that in the BMW. So I think that's one thing that BMW can improve on. But of course, the two cars aren't really matched exactly spec by spec. There are some things that the BMW has that the Mercedes doesn't. There's some things that the Mercedes has that the BMW doesn't. For example, what the BMW has over the Mercedes, it's got this nice Alcantara roof liner, while the Mercedes just has a normal roof liner. You also get this fancy display key. Now this really looks impressive on the table of the bar when you go meet all your other rich friends. You can show off and say that you can control, you can check out the status of your car, how much fuel you have left. You can precondition the air conditioning system so that it's nice and cool and things like that. And of course, there's this nice wireless charger which you don't get in the 740Li. This is what BMW added in the 740Le. This is based on the Qi protocol. So it doesn't just work charging your key, it also works charging your Qi capable smartphones like the Samsung Galaxy series of phones. But personally, while this key is very visually impressive, I'd rather just keep it at home and use the normal key because it doesn't really do much. I'd rather use this BMW connected app in place of the big remote that you saw just now, because this lets me do all that I can do with the remote and much more. But the only thing I can't do is actually start the car, which is why I still need to bring the normal remote around. You also get this full digital instrument panel in the 7 Series, which personally I really like the graphics. I think they did a great job at designing the graphics. Because this is the eDrive model, by default it shows you a power reserve instead of engine RPM. So it kind of shows how much percentage of power you have left to use. But if you turn it into sport mode, it changes into a regular RPM meter. And there's also the Eco Pro display, which is a more fuel economy focused display. Sort of encourages you to drive more economically by having visual cues of how much throttle you should be using and how fast you should be limiting yourself when you drive. This is where usually the S-Class would outclass the 7 Series, but again, in this generation, everything has gotten much closer. The same issue as with the front of the cabin. Visually, the rear cabin of the 7 Series is not as impressive. There's no wow factor when you look at it. But in terms of material, ergonomics, the 7 Series is very comparable to the S-Class. I did notice one thing. In the 7 Series, the seatbelt doesn't quite press on my shoulder so much as the new S-Class. On the new S-Class, I kind of feel that this section is a bit tight. This was not a problem on the previous S-Class because on that one the seatbelt came out from the pillar. But here on the 7 Series, even though the seatbelt comes out from the back of the seat instead of the pillar, somehow they've designed it to be it doesn't disturb me that much. There are 2 screens on the rear for entertainment purposes, and you can either control them from this tablet here or this remote control. It's very easy to control. This rotary knob is similar in operation as how you operate the iDrive rotary knob. But of course, if you don't want to use these rear entertainment screens, there's also a tablet here. This is built on a Samsung tablet. You can see the Samsung logo prominently displayed here. The default interface is BMW's own iDrive kind of system where you can control the lighting, the blinds. You can even adjust the seats from this tablet. You can adjust the aircon system, the radio system. You can see where your car is on the GPS system. When you press the apps feature, you actually get in a normal Android OS here. And you press the home button, it goes back to the BMW system. You can actually take this out of the car and use it like a normal tablet. When you get back in the car, simply put it back in the dock and it will start charging. The BMW rear entertainment system is more advanced than the Mercedes-Benz one in the sense that it can actually take HDMI input, so it's a lot more sort of in the times compared to the Mercedes one, which only accepts those analog red, white and yellow inputs. So you can use this with more modern devices like your Amazon Fire TV, or you can even plug your Google Chromecast in. Personally, for me, I would rather just use my phone as a rear entertainment device rather than any of this. but I suppose that it would be useful for kids, for example. Of course, if you have two kids behind you, they don't have to fight over what show they want to watch. They can watch two separate shows, and they don't even have to disturb the driver, because they can watch their shows on headphones, because each screen has their own separate headphone output. As for the seats themselves, I mentioned a bit about the leather quality earlier, but that's not what makes a seat. Every human being is different, they have different heights and all that. So what I like about the BMW seats is that they're very adjustable. The backrest itself is adjustable two ways. You can adjust the tilt, and you can also adjust the angle of the upper part of the headrest separately. You see, even though the control is actually meant to adjust your headrest angle, but the entire top half of the backrest actually adjusts, sort of shape the seat to follow the shape of your back absolutely perfectly. You don't get this with the Mercedes-Benz. This is, of course, very personal. For me, I find that the rear seats of the S-Class don't quite fit my back perfectly. I find that the lumbar area kind of sticks out too much, and there's not enough support for my shoulder area. Whereas in the 7 Series, I'm able to adjust the rear seats to completely support my entire back. In that way, I prefer the seats of the 7 Series. But some of my colleagues, they prefer the seats of the S-Class. So this is a very personal thing. You have to absolutely go to the showroom and try both cars to see which seat suits you better. Because if you end up with the wrong seat, you're gonna have to live with the car for a few years, and that's just a big no-no. As for the seat controls themselves, BMW has put the controls on the sides of the center armrest. This means that you can't use them when you use the car as a 3-seater, because where have the seat controls gone? On the S-Class, they're on the door, so you can use them regardless of the position of the center armrest. So a solution for that would be to take out the tablet, and I guess you could keep it here in the storage here, fold up the seat, and as a 3-seater, you can still control the seats here on the tablet. As for using this rear bench as a 3-seater bench, I would recommend it only in emergency cases, because the level of comfort offered by the middle seat is quite far from the left and right seats. You end up sitting slightly higher than the other two seats, and this results in limited headroom at the top. Another difference with the rear cabins between the S-Class and the 7 Series is the lack of seat heating and cooling for the 7 Series rear seats. In fact, they are missing for the front seats as well, whereas the S-Class has seat heating and cooling for both the front and rear seats. In terms of seat massage feature, yes, the 7 Series has a seat massage feature. You can activate it using the tablet. And there's also the lack of an Ottoman kind of leg support thing for the 7 Series. On the S-Class, there's an extendable Ottoman here, which acts as a leg support when you want to really lie down. But in the 7 Series, it's not available on the Malaysian spec cars, because from what I heard, that feature is only available on left-hand drive cars. So it's not that the 7 Series doesn't have that feature, it's just that it's not available in right-hand drive countries at the moment. So, the BMW 740Le. How much to own one? Just a few hundred ringgit under 600,000. That price tag is made possible with hybrid tax exemptions in Malaysia, which saves you a total about 255,000 ringgit. That's how much tax you're saving when you buy this car. But of course, owning a car is never about just paying your monthly installments. There's also the ownership cost of the car. In terms of road tax, to pay for this little sticker here, the 7 Series only costs you about less than 800 ringgit a year when it comes to road tax. For the equivalent company registration for the S-Class, it can cost you a few thousand ringgit. In terms of service, the 7 Series comes with free 5 years free service and 5 years warranty. Whereas for the S-Class, you only get 4 years warranty and no free service is included. Thankfully for both cars, the warranty coverage is for unlimited mileage. Of course, in terms of fuel costs, this is a plug-in hybrid, whereas the S-Class is only a normal hybrid. So there's naturally going to be a big difference in fuel costs. Based on our experience, the S-Class does about 9 to 10 liters per 100 km, whereas this guy consumes just about 6 liters per 100 km. But of course, that 6 liter figure is taking into account recharging the battery in this car to full almost every day. Each full charge costs us about 5 ringgit based on current TNB rates. If you multiply that by 30 days a month, that's another 150 ringgit a month. Or you can charge it for free at the Charge EV charging stations. So there you have it, the BMW 740Le and our thoughts about how it drives and rides. Do share with us your thoughts in the comment section and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is Paul Tan signing out.